Hi, I am Lisa Marie Kosas, the founder of Global One Health and Global One Fitness. This video officially marks the beginning of my educational videos, and I thought it most important to address the topic of breathing. There's nothing we do in life more than breathing, and we take about 20,000 breaths per day on average. So I think it's probably the best place to start. But also, no matter what training forms you follow or what training modalities that you are interested in doing, all exercise forms involve breathing, breath awareness, and movement is very much directly related to our breath and the timing and such. So that's why I'm starting here. Now, before we get started into the breathing drills that I'm going to teach you in a few moments, I want to give a quick introduction to the core, or at least part of the core structure. If you don't know what that is, it's, in my opinion, integrally important to know what core muscles are involved in breathing. I also want to very much emphasize the important correlation between breathing and core. So most people come to me, especially as a Pilates instructor, I want a stronger core, they say. Yes, they want better posture, maybe to get stronger, but breathing is so important because if you're not breathing correctly, you are inhibiting your ability to get proper and full maximum engagement of your core. So let's just quickly talk about anatomy of the core, as that very directly relates to breathing. So we're going to talk about 3 of the inner unit muscles of the core that are directly related to breath. First and foremost is your diaphragm. Why do I talk about that? Because if you ever heard of the phrase belly breathing, when you belly breathe, you are basically doing diaphragmatic breathing. So knowing where your diaphragm is critically important in my opinion. So the diaphragm sits horizontally under the kind of base of the rib cage or the top of the visceral area. So it runs right across this way. So when you breathe in, right, you are ideally, if you're taking a belly breath in, you are engaging your diaphragm. Now, when you inhale, the diaphragm contracts and pulls downward to create more space for the lungs to be able to expand to get oxygen into the body. So that is why diaphragm awareness is important. If I turn to the side and I take a diaphragmatic breath in, my belly will inflate outward, right? So I inhale, my belly inflates outward, and when I exhale, it might slightly deflate back in, right? One more time. I inflate in my belly, my diaphragm is engaged, belly inflates, and when I exhale, the belly will slightly deflate. So that is number 1. Number 2, pelvic floor, right? So pelvic floor is at the opposite side of the trunk, at the base of the pelvis, so to speak. So right down here is the pelvic floor. I want to reference the shape of the pelvic floor as we're going to talk more about that moving forward. But just to have an idea, the pelvic floor is shaped like a diamond, has 4 points, 4 bony landmarks. The pubic bone is the front point. The tailbone at the base of your spine is the back point. And the sit bones, which we're going to talk a bit more about in posture conversation moving forward, right? The sit bones ideally are the bones you want to be sitting directly on when you're sitting upright in neutral spine, the bones in each of the butt cheeks. They form the side points of your diamond. Now, when you engage your core with breathing, you need to know what your pelvic floor is, which is why I take the time to explain it, right? So step 1, I inhale, I inflate my belly. In step 2, the very next thing I need to do is to engage my pelvic floor, right? That is the base of the core, it is where the core initiates and then travels up in energy and activation from there. And the third component we're going to talk about is your TVA, which stands for transverse abdominis, or your abdominal wall. Now, understand that the abdominal wall wraps 360 degrees around it. So when you practice these breathing drills, you are using all 3 of your core muscles. So please understand the importance, again, that how you breathe directly affects your ability to activate your core. So if you want to improve core strength, you should be aware of your breathing, and by being aware of breathing, you can positively affect your ability to increase the strength of your core musculature. So we have the diaphragm at the top, the pelvic floor at the base of the core and pelvis, and in between those 2 structures is your abdominal wall, which wraps, again, 360 degrees around the trunk. The fibers run horizontally. You can think of it for women, I give a reference of you're tightening a corset. For men, you're wearing a weight belt and you're making the weight belt tighter. So you want to feel all this coming together. Now I'm going to use a TheraBand to do the breathing drills, but now you have an idea or a visual picture of the core. So when you're using your core muscles, you will get the maximum benefit through your breathing, right? And vice versa. So I'm going to inhale, inflate the belly, and then I exhale. I don't just passively exhale. And when I do, that is something that we're going to do throughout our life. We're not going to be thinking about our core and activating it 24/7, right? We're still going to be breathing though. So in everyday life, when you're at work, thinking about all these other things in life, right? When you breathe, if you're breathing and you're training your belly to inflate, you are training the diaphragm to activate. Now, why is that important? The diaphragm is the primary breathing muscle in our body. Therefore, it should be doing most of the work upon inhalation. If I'm slouching, we'll talk about this more in the posture video. If I'm slouching, the weight of my upper body compresses my diaphragm, inhibiting its ability to fully engage during breath, in particular during inhalation. So slouching also negatively impacts core activation, but also our ability to be breathing correctly. Okay, so that is important to know, right? So if I breathe in and my belly inflates, when I exhale, it naturally deflates. Now, that's good that I'm engaging my diaphragm, but I'm not going to be engaging the rest of the core musculature unless I'm consciously thinking about it. So, as I breathe in and I then start my exhale, I want to contract that pelvic floor musculature as though I am stopping the urine flow as a way of thinking. People say, well, how do I know if I'm engaging my pelvic floor? Basically, it is a contraction of the muscles, women, the vaginal muscles, but it's a contraction of the muscles, the urine muscle. So if I stop the urine flow before I'm finished, that contraction or cessation of the urine flow is activation of the front of your pelvic floor. Now, as a diamond, as I said, the pelvic floor has two triangles. The backside of the pelvic floor is the anus, right? So if you do an anal contraction, you are now contracting the back portion of your pelvic floor. So you want to contract the anal muscles and the muscles in the front, which stop the urine flow. That is full contraction of, or integrating all of your pelvic floor musculature. So that is the beginning of the exhale. I contract my pelvic floor and then I add my abdominals in. So from the side view, inhale belly. I exhale, contract my pelvic floor, and then I proceed to draw my abdominals in tightly. So one more time, inhale belly. Notice I'm inhaling through my nose, which is more ideal than my mouth. I exhale, contract pelvic floor, and I tighten my abs. So a great drill you can do is to use a TheraBand because it gives a little bit more tangible resistance on to help increase the awareness of activating this structure. And then I'm going to give you 2 breathing drills before we finish the video. So I'm going to put the TheraBand around my waist. I'm going to make it a little bit snug so there's some tension on the band. And this always has been beneficial to help clients feel how the core actually works and what breathing feels like. So now I have a source of resistance. I'm going to inhale. And as I inhale, I'm trying to push into the TheraBand, right? I'm trying to expand on all sides, front, side, and back, remembering that the TVA wraps 360 degrees. I want my breath to be 3-dimensional as well. I don't want it to go into the chest and sternum. If you see, right, if you feel your shoulders and upper traps and neck muscles tense when you're breathing, you're not breathing in the most ideal way or the most proper way. You also don't want to have more of the breath happen in the chest than in the belly. So if you feel the sternum raise or grab, then you're also not breathing right properly. You want to think of the breath lower down below the chest line. So having the band nice and tight, I'm holding it with one hand. I'm going to inhale, and I'm going to try to push out into the TheraBand. And then as I exhale, I contract my pelvic floor muscles and I draw my belly muscles in deeply. We'll do that twice more so you can see. Inhale belly, it inflates, it expands. I exhale, I engage my pelvic floor and I pull my abdominals in and up. Last time, inhale belly. Exhale, contract the pelvic floor, tighten the abdominal walls. Everything pulls in and up towards the head. So 2 basic drills you can do. I've just done the first one, but you can do anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20 reps, and that is you reset each time. So you inhale, inflate the belly. Exhale, engage pelvic floor, draw the abs in tightly. Inhale, belly. Exhale, engage pelvic floor, and draw the abs in tightly. So by resetting or releasing the contraction of your pelvic floor and your abs each time enables you to consciously think, right? Get the brain focused on what you're doing. The more you integrate the awareness of what you're doing, the brain and the core, the brain and the feet, the brain and whatever the movement is, whatever muscle groups are involved, right? The more your brain and your mind are thinking about what you're doing, you are increasing the synapse connections and building muscle memory. So always think about what you're doing and not what you need to make for dinner or have your mind thinking about something else. Always try to think of your movement to the best of your ability and you'll get maximum results. So first drill, you reset each time. Again, 5, 10, 15 reps. Do 2 to 3 sets, but integrate, because you're breathing all day long. So if you can think at random moments, and I tell every client this, it's a numbers game, right? The more that you think about 5 breaths here, 10 breaths there, 2 breaths there, you're walking to the restroom, you're waiting online to get coffee, right? So thinking about I'm going to think, or you're walking 1 city block, I'm going to just think about my core, my breathing, right? The more activation you get, the better results you'll have in the long run. So doing that drill, resetting each time is the first drill. The second drill is your goal is to build strength endurance isometrically in the core structure. And you're going to do your breath or use your breath to help benefit that. So you're going to start the same way. You inhale belly, exhale, engage the pelvic floor and the abs. Then what you want to do from that point, once you're fully engaged, you want to start to count out loud, ideally going to 30. So I would do 1, 2, 3, 4 at a nice slow tempo. Now, if I tell my clients, the goal is to hit 30 counts and then release the musculature. If you don't have enough endurance strength in the core to isometrically keep the contraction, and by 10, you start to feel the muscles releasing, then stop counting at 10. The goal is not just to count to 30 to count to 30. The goal is how long can I maintain the activation? And that's what's going to give me the strength to be able to put that into exercise, right? So make note for yourself. If you can't make it to 30, just note where you are. If you're at 10, then the goal is to try to hold for 12. If you're at 12, 15, 20, etc. But your goal is to 30. That is about the length of an average set, but it's also the length of an average push in delivery, if that is, right, if you're training, if you are pregnant or close to giving birth, right? These are reasons why the number is 30, right? So that's your goal. So do those 2 drills, resetting each time, inhaling, and the second one is keeping the 30 count or keeping the activation for up to 30 counts. Now, please, because a lot of clients have done this, you don't want to, on the second drill, take a breath in and you're not trying to exhale for 30 counts. You have to keep breathing, just like I'm talking. I'm not thinking about breathing. I'm naturally getting a little bit of oxygen in and carbon dioxide out as I talk. It happens naturally. So you don't want to exhale for 30 counts. That's why you count out loud, is so that there is an exchange of air happening. You get a little bit oxygen in and out, right? Carbon dioxide out. So again, do not hold the breath. The goal is to keep engagement and still be able to breathe while maintaining activation of the core. So that is a very important concept or thought to understand. So those are the 2 drills. Practice this anywhere. You can practice your breathing drills sitting, standing, walking down the street, in the shower, cooking dinner. The more you think about how to activate your core with your breathing, not only is your breathing going to become more efficient, but you will also have the ability to get more core activation and hopefully build more isometric core strength and endurance. So that is how we breathe in a nutshell.